guys, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion number 273, cutscene controller and localization plan. And I was joined by Afflixian. I had some technical issues that I did not realize until just now. So basically, what happened is we recorded it last night together like normal. All seemed good, and then I went to render the video this morning, and I realized OBS had not recorded Afflixian's audio whatsoever for some stupid reason. I don't know why. I like reset all my sound things, and now it seems to be working, picking up desktop sound. But anyway, so I have to do this morning, which I'd obviously not planned to do because we'd already recorded it, and I'm very short on time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do one big summary, and before you worry, this is actually a really good Friday Facts to summarize. Just really quickly, it's pretty straightforward, nothing like super major. First off, we got a lot of goodies, a lot of chocolate, candy. So they received this gift from Steam. I see some dark chocolate in here, not maybe some sort of berry something here. Looks so good, man. Looks like it's all chocolate of some sort. Man, maybe I should make a game on Steam just so they can send me this stuff. I mean, I'd love to get this type of stuff. Yeah, so they're delicious and don't seem to be lasting long. So basically this whole section is a cutscene controller. And basically what that means is that it allows the devs to have a kind of automated cutscenes and movement of the camera without the player having to intervene, and kind of do it smoothly as well. So they say here, in other words, we need cutscenes. There's simple things. We need to take control away from the player, move the camera around to show the things we need to show, and maybe display some messages on screen. Cutscenes are meant to be triggered and controlled by scenarios, so there needs to be a generic way for scripts to describe a cutscene. So inside the engine, player inputs pass through a layer called unimaginatively controller. The J16 version of the game knows 3 controllers: character controller, where the player inputs control the engineer entity in the center of the screen; God controller, which is not tied to an in-world entity, but rather allows the camera to fly around the world freely and interact with anything. And this is basically how the Sandbox Mode works. Like there's actually a mode labeled Sandbox. That's basically what this is, where you just can fly around the camera. You don't actually have a character. And then lastly, Ghost controller, which does not allow the player to control the game at all. This is the controller layout is an ideal way to take control away from the player in a cutscene. It's also, a good way to move the camera automatically. Even better, Lewis scripts can already change the current controller for any given player. Adding a new controller type to facilitate cutscenes was the obvious choice here. So basically, it has a list of map positions to pan the camera to, and we can see a nice example here. This is like for the mostly for the new player campaign experience. They mentioned above, you can kind of just see it happening here. If they say up here that this is like mostly for the tutorial new player experience. However, you can see down here that since this is all accessible from Lua, modders and scenario creators will be able to make a use of this new functionality in 0.17 from day one, which is fantastic. I imagine that, mods, I'm not sure will have a ton of use for it, but scenarios, anyone who's a scenario maker, I think can do a ton with this. This will be, because then you could actually almost have a story, where, it shows different stuff and kind of shows you around and stuff. I mean, that'd be really cool. So next thing is a rail clock. This is not really game related. Well, it's kind of game related, but it's just a fun thing they did. So they were inspired by a YouTube video they ran across by the venerable Arrow in my gluteus maximus, which I've watched a lot of his videos. You guys have seen a lot of his videos because I have covered like 4 or 5 or more of them in my Reddit weeklies. He's like in the top posts in Reddit like every other week. He does really, really crazy, cool inventions and tests in Factorio. One of them was the fastest you can possibly move, where he was jumping between silos and locomotives and stuff. So they decided a great test case for cutscenes would be a static camera for a rail clock in the office, which could display the actual time. You can see here, it looks pretty much like a normal clock, 11:36. But this is what's actually happening, is they've set this up where they have the trains come in. It looks like they've done something to make the tracks invisible. You can kind of see the outlines of them. I'm not sure if you can in my video, but they zoom in to their stops. It's now 11:59, and then they zoom off, and it would obviously change, each minute, and then look kind of like this from far away, which is super cool. I mean, it's I don't know why you can't just use a normal clock, but I mean, if you can make a clock in Factorio like this, that's still pretty neat too, right? So, um, if you're a reasonably technical user and would like to run one yourself, you can check out the Rail Clock repo. Unfortunately, as it does use various 017 features, you can't actually run this today, but once 017 is released publicly, it should work fine. You also need to use either Linux or Mac OS. Windows might work, but there's a Python component involved which has never been tested on Windows. So that may eliminate a lot of people, but still really cool. And the last is localization planned for 1.0. So they've been using Crowdin for all the non-English translations of the game, and mostly it's been really good with that. But as they approach 1.0, they want to, make all parts as clean and polished as possible, and try to get as many languages as they can, and get the languages translated as well as they can, in like all the main languages and stuff. So they say we need to know where they should prioritize our efforts so that the languages we target and focus are the most significant ones and will help as many players as possible enjoy the game. To gather preliminary data, we have created a simple Google form with some questions for our community. If you could help us by spending a few minutes filling it out, we will be able to make a more accurate decision on which languages are important. So definitely fill out the survey, guys. It's just like a Google form. Very simple information, like what's your native language, what language do you speak, what language do you play Factorio in, do you know anyone who doesn't play because there's not a language for it, or stuff like that. Super simple, but it will really help them kind of zero in and narrow down, what languages they should focus on. Now, if you are obviously English speaking and that's your primary language, probably don't need to take this because the game's already in English natively, basically. So, but if you do speak a non-English language, definitely take this. If you have any other suggestions or feedback on localization Factorio, any companies which you would recommend, etc., please let us know. As always, you can share those on the forum. So there you go, guys. I think this is probably the quickest summary I've ever done. Like I said, it's a really good one to summarize. Cool cutscene stuff, really neat clock invention. You can mess around with yourself if you're fairly technical, and then the localization language translation for 1.0. So next week, I look forward to hopefully seeing some like in-game stuff like we've had the previous weeks, but this is still really cool. Until then, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts below. I apologize for the mess up. I mean, I had no reason to check if OBS had recorded the sound or not, because it always does, except for last night. So I'm not sure what the deal was, but we should be in good shape for next week. Anyway, until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.